Hey guys, welcome to my 2023 Albums of the Year video that I've been just kind of not really doing, but it's been on my list of things to do and I felt like doing it tonight. There's going to be some honorable mentions that I'm not going to really talk about, but I'm going to play a bunch of clips of. Then I'm going to go ahead and talk about what was my favorite albums of the year that came out. So I'll be talking kind of briefly about each one of those. I just kind of like to do this every year. And so here's my video for 2023 coming out here at the beginning of May. Ouch. You know, last year I put it out in March and I thought that was bad. But yep, here we go with the honorable mentions.
To rest out, he wasn't conscious of pain that brought him out his rest now. Oh, it's the Wild West now. I got some shit to test out. Coming when juggling with suppliers, call it even. Seeing how I leveled up off the steps and made enough money to bail Jerry Buss out of debt. Stampede crack in the gates, blow me fast just like a game. Go through the cash like it's a phase.
Devotions, keeping focused, starship, is that a foreign? She's organic, skin is glowing, my heart is going.
Like, wow.
Split personality, 2 phones, 2 emotions.
Everything, the bad, the ugly, the good. It's understood that South Philly was a marvel. I'd never be one to argue. The cracks in the pavement, front steps made of marble. The smell of pine.
Step into the scene. No, nobody can do it like me. Zoop house plate with the kick cuisine. I was the black top king. Just wait it out. Never the same. Going the way I go. With how and where I
Okay, so now we're going to start talking about my favorite albums of the year. They're in no particular order. So here we go.
Our Gloria, la vida, luz do sol, que a folha.
Number one on my list, you know, again, they're in no particular order, but it's the first one I'm going to talk about. It's an album, I don't know how to really say his name. It's a Brazilian artist called Xande de Pilares, and the album's called something like Xande Conta Caetano, or maybe Saitano, not really sure. It's a warm and amazingly melodic Brazilian album, and I'm just reading right off the computer. I took some notes, trying to be kind of thoughtful about it, not off the top of my head. But anyway, it's a Brazilian music album. This group that's playing songs by an artist called Caetano Veloso. So I think they're all covers. And I listened to those originals and they're kind of more calm and stuff, but these versions of the songs are kind of a fresh and upbeat kind of samba style. Sounds like a celebration of Caetano and his music. There are super intricate strings with flute and other horns that just kind of are really intricate and detailed and very energetic. And there's a lot of really exciting percussion, and the vocal performances they just absolutely stun. I simply cannot believe the drama of a ton of the moments here. And I think that the album cover kind of does a terrible job of representing the absolutely glorious music. Okay, so the next one on the list is a self-titled album by a group called London Brew. This album is a pretty amazing listen. They're doing jazz kind of in the spirit of Miles Davis's later stuff, kind of fusion, with a more current sound like 2023. There's a lot of imagination and passion on display here within these pretty complicated yet sprawling compositions. This album is full of sounds that I have never heard from instruments of all kinds that are used in ways that I've never heard. So you could describe it as inventive. I think that would be a fair description. And though it's reminiscent of that later period of Miles Davis, it is in no way derivative. Definitely a special album. Okay, Black Country New Road live at Bush Hall. I saw them live this year. It was an amazing show. This live album first came out as a big live video, and I was there to watch it on YouTube Premiere when they did it kind of like a live stream, and it was pretty impactful for me. It was very emotional. So every member of Black Country New Road is now a crucially important character in the music that the band expresses as though they are one organism. So it's very much, there's no real lead. The whole band is kind of taking on lead here and there. It kind of goes between them. Really nice. So they're all very important. Each member is like an important character within the music. The music is wonderfully human and kind of covers all things human within the material. Like I said, it's very emotional. It's kind of a roller coaster. It's very earnest, straight up, sometimes rather stark, but also, of course, very beautiful and sometimes really heartwarming, and sometimes so heartwarming that it kind of burns you alive. It's just really intense. This band is really showing here that they have a very wide range of expression, so you never really know what to expect from them. Definitely looking forward to them in the future. A lot of what they do is amazingly bold. Okay, now we're talking about Telos, their album Delude. This is a mathcore leaning album in kind of some sludge metal type influence. Mathcore in the sense of chaos and dynamism, and sludge in terms of brutality and walls of sound. And it's a very aggressive and direct album. I love the way that the guitar and bass have their own defined spaces in the mix. It allows the sound of chaos to be captured in all its sinister and spite-filled glory. Some intense drumming that responds well to chaos, and the vocals are always nailing it. It's a good album. Okay, this one's TDK Nemesta, Bulgaria. Don't know any music from Bulgaria besides this. I don't understand the words that their singers are offering up here. What I do understand is that the music is brutal and colorful and unrelenting and nuanced, super kind of bizarre metal. The singer kind of breaks down and falls apart a bit on the second to last track here, and it's super good. Definitely kind of a crucial moment of the thing. Quite a bit of instrumental ambition here, composing for horns, and then it will transition to bits of electronic music. I think I'm particularly interested in the drummer of this band. He's great. He can play anything, and he varies what he's doing quite a lot across the kind of short runtime of this album. It's very varied the way he plays. There's plenty of the dissonant kind of mathcore sounding guitar work, and it's laced with these very calculated noise bits and rhythmically dizzy chugs. Really cool. And apparently Bulgarian.
So, press the gas is the first part of the plan, and everything afterwards we swerve and zigzag. Strange terrain.
Okay, this one's the Ox Blockhead. It's a producer album featuring tons of different rappers. I think a lot of the tracks are amazing. Some of the rappers are like Koreatown Oddity, which I really love some of that stuff that he's put out. Casual, which is interesting. He's from that group Hieroglyphics, which is awesome. RXK, another one's featured. He's kind of been hitting it big recently. On and on. There's a lot of interesting rappers, and the cohesion across the album and the consistency of quality of beats and rap performances are really impressive, especially for a producer album that can sometimes come across as rather random. I think it has a lot of cohesive performances and quality. Of course, there's no kind of narrative going through the whole album. Certainly all the rappers are really artistic and authentic to themselves and very unique character. There's it's just kind of banger after banger. Really cool album. Okay, this one's Wednesday, Rat Saw God. Great album to listen to loud, and pretty heavy dose of catharsis here. There are some absolute emotional meltdowns on this album that are stunning. And the build up to get there is all great and very kind of essential, and the storytelling is really nice. So on first listen, some of the meandering vocals didn't totally sell me, but when you keep listening to see what they will end up morphing into as the emotions intensify, I started liking them a little bit more. You can hear the kind of shoegazy, kind of hazy noise influences here. It's also great to see how they turn those tropes on their head across the album. They kind of subvert your expectations with those tropes, like sometimes whenever they get almost country sounding. Definitely a unique album. Really enjoyed it. We're going to talk about the new Invent Animate album, Heavener. I'm so pleased that this album turned out to be so good. I really enjoy some of the older stuff that they've done. I just think there's so many well-crafted parts of these songs where every instrument is featured super well and the vocals totally rule. There are some moments on this album that kind of reinvent some metalcore, tropes. And there are some super unique ways to do breakdowns and some unique melodies being sung. And I've always found that Invent Animate super tastefully uses the electronic elements and puts them into their sound, and they're doing that. That's definitely true here as well. It's a kind of metalcore that comes across as sort of a very beautiful, and we're going to talk about the new album 10,000 gecs. It's definitely still the same flavor of this kind of amazing hyper pop combined with every influence possible, which they have done that sort of thing in the past. And I would say here they offer kind of a whole other set of influences and kind of a different sounding instrumental palette. Of course, it's electronic and samples. They switch it up here and go full rock quite frequently. And it's computer software and samples, and there are amazing glitches and insanity and warping, and those are all still in full effect here. And so it's definitely a really exciting listen to the person who already has enjoyed past stuff that 100 gecs has done. This is the perfect way to have a sense of humor and attitude as a band right now in 2023. It's so good at the same time as being so funny. Everybody loves this group. I'm definitely thrilled to hear more stuff from them. Okay, really interesting one here. Figura, the Canyon Observer. This album puts on display a perfect dichotomy of sensitivity and intensity. And you get the idea that you're in for some very moody and eccentric music very quickly whenever you start listening to it. Like track 1 really lets it all hang out, and very quickly 11 and a half minutes have flown by, and you've got a good sense for the album's tone going forward by that point. I would say that particular song is really just about introducing this Slovenian band and what they do. As compositionally, it's extremely open and simple. And I should mention that the band consists of your traditional metal lineup with the addition of some saxophones and cellos. But it's where we go from here, from the first album, which, the body of the album. Where you go from the first track is where the compositions and experiments really become kind of the star of the show. And hearing these talented and very emotive players, expressive players, glide and trudge through these really interesting compositions becomes quite a spectacle. So it's really nice listen. Okay, Squid O Monolith. This album from the band sees them focusing and slowing down a bit and really chewing and savoring, in comparison to some older stuff, I think. Looking for flavors that want to express themselves in the compositions and giving all these flavors ample time to express themselves. The songs drive and build on each other in kind of like a kraut kind of way, like krautrock, where you get kind of some repetition that becomes kind of an important element of the music. And each song, to me, or most songs, feel kind of like a framework where these different ideas are explored, or sometimes multiple ideas, and they're allowed to coexist together, and it sounds really interesting. It's sort of like the compositions serve like a limitation within much chaos is sort of contained, and therefore much chaos sounds and comes across as intelligent and very maximalist, but it has such good songwriting and such good reservation that it's really kind of expertly crafted, the music is. And it kind of ranges anywhere from playful to absolutely crushing. So it's a very cool, explorative listen. So Halt or I'll Shoot, the For What EP. So not an album, it's an EP. There's some EPs here. It's a very colorful, screaming emo, screamo, EP that seems to be kind of unknown, unfortunately. People don't really talk about it much. It's something I stumbled across one day, probably on Bandcamp or something. I don't remember right now, but I'm happy I found this. It might have been Instagram, actually. I think it was. But I'm definitely happy I stumbled across this. It's definitely an artist that I will be following in the future because this project has amazing potential for something massive. Lots of really cool electronic elements incorporated into their emo, screamo stuff in such a brilliant way. Really great guitar passages, just well-written guitar parts, and it's packed with surprises that all end up landing super well. So it's really a nice one. Okay, we'll talk about Great Falls, Objects Without Pain. This album is so interesting. Each song is just a total journey, and I find it to be very unpredictable. So many interesting sounding twists and turns that develop in and out of each other. It's sometimes slow and sludgy and nasty and all that, and then all of a sudden a riff just starts pummeling you into the ground and stomps all over you. There are times on this album where I just can't even believe that a human wrote the stuff. Like, to conceive of these stretched out epics of songs loaded with great noise and musical details that went into this album, it's just a really deep bag of ideas contained within, a small set of brains in the band. And they nailed the execution. Seriously good. Okay, let's talk about some hip-hop. The artist Mike, Burning Desire. I've liked several things from this guy. Mike is a super good artist, and this album shows him getting more ambitious than he's ever been. He's already been ambitious. All kinds of beats that are seriously cool and varied. Great guest features, and of course Mike is doing that sort of poetic and mature, laid-back style of rapping that he's known for. These beats have sort of a blown-out sound that kind of reminds me of kind of an older A$AP Rocky mixtape in a very good way, except these instrumentals sound more psychedelic and noisy. And they really complement Mike as he kind of raps about, a lot of the topic is self-actualization in life, that sort of introspection and figuring out what kind of man you want to be. Great stuff. Okay, Liturgy 93696. This is definitely a clever take on black metal. Liturgy is known for that kind of very interesting way of doing black metal, venturing out of the traditional sound palace to make some great music that kind of translate the listener into a journey of elevation, some bizarre higher consciousness or something. And I say that in a dismissive way because I honestly find the lyrics kind of conceptually vapid and venturing almost into meme territory. So I don't really take the lyrics very seriously. Although I think it's like kind of fun alternate universe sort of way, but I can't take this stuff seriously lyrically. It's just bizarre stuff. But fun, definitely fun. I don't mean to insult. I just mean to say I paying much attention to the lyrics here is not really what I'm doing when I'm listening to this. Although I do kind of appreciate the thoughtfulness and the craft of ideas in the music that the artist has at the same time. So it's kind of interesting. I like that they're reaching for something greater in music. They're really kind of reaching for transcendence in sound. Maybe not quite finding it, but definitely finding something in your reaching. And I think that's a good thing for artists to do, is really go for something, and then you're going to land on something. Whether you get to what you were reaching for or not, you're going to land on something really cool. And this is something great. Love to listen to it. Okay, this album is fascinating, maybe it's even more fascinating to me than it is good. I do think it's good, but I think I care more about how fascinating it is. It's one that I like to listen to, even though I might not think it's all just like a jam or something. It's just all whoa. It's got all these bizarre moments, and they're really playing with tension and release, and they're defying expectations at every turn, and they're definitely having a great time writing and performing the music, and the players in the band are very solid. The singer has oodles of character. It's just the bulk of the album kind of sounds like bland rock music to me, to be honest, and it is done with loads of irony, so that definitely helps. But I just don't see this album as an album of jams. I think it's a must listen to for music fans, but maybe not a must jam. But yep, I like it. Oh, Deerhoof, Miracle Level. I cannot believe Deerhoof. This band, I saw them live this past summer, and they were an amazing live band. It was right in front of me, and I still can't believe what I saw right in front of me. So let's talk about the album. This album takes things that they're known to do, and it makes them kind of positive and wonderful and celebratory and kind of feel-goody. That being said, there is a serious amount of sincere and extremely descript Deerhoof style funkiness and things I've never heard from anyone else, which is typical for Deerhoof. They're really adventurous with the way that they make music. Even kind of sloppy, like the train is just falling off the tracks, but it lands in a really interesting way. This Deerhoof discography with this album, and probably with what they will do in the future, it's really shaping up to be more and more insane with every release. And it really reflects their just incredibly broad scope of expression, all of which at the same time is contained within maintaining their identity. They are extremely varied at the same time as always Deerhoof. So I definitely think this album plays right into that and is a wonderful introduction to their already existing pretty lengthy discography. Okay, this band is Catalyst PVD, and this is called the ... EP. So I've definitely enjoyed stuff from this band in the past, really like this as well. I just think that this band knows exactly how to sound. They take that sort of talk poetry, kind of slinty stuff, and it's unique compared to what they've gone for before. They haven't really done some of that slinty stuff in the past, but they're really doing it a lot here. And because this band knows exactly how to sound, it sounds effortlessly gnarly, like they're not even trying. But they just put out an amazing sound all the time. And there's some really beautiful parts of this EP. And that's not really a way that I've described or thought of their music previously to this EP. The drummer is going for some new grooves and doing some rim kind of stuff. And also the bass, what a great tone here on this album. Following this band these last few years has been massively rewarding. They are awesome. And I suppose you could call this EP a bit of a softer side for the band, and I love it.
All your words are shining stars.
Okay, this one's called Feeble Little Horse, Girl with Fish. There are beautiful melodies and noisy, very full-sounding, lush, shoegazy sounds all over this with a great sense of groove. And there is lots of well-incorporated strangeness being kind of a staple component of the sound across the length of this release. I love the full warm sound of the music here. Everything kind of has that persistent warm fuzz that's just like a hug. I like bands who kind of sound like they're playing around in an artistic way. Just kind of thinking around, and it feels playful, and there is plenty of that here also. Okay, Drifting by, I'm not going to be able to say this one right, Met Henriette. Might be Met, I guess. Anyway, this is very much in the tradition of ECM jazz recordings. It's very ambient, very beautiful. This album is a sweeping and gestural feat of beauty. Though maybe in contrast to other ECM sort of stuff, this album has a really great sort of rhythm through the kind of pastiche style sounds that each track creates. Each instrumentalist has such a way of touching their respective instrument. In particular, the tenor sax expresses with its pitch and range and vibrato, and also just literal breathing sometimes. And there's an instrument called a violoncello. This is kind of like a combo instrument. And it expresses with sparseness and starkness. And the piano expresses with its kind of theme setting and dynamics that bring about some kind of story arc and energy arc. I love when the different kind of timbres of the album just poke their way into the sound. It's like for an entire album, no one made a wrong move on their instruments. It's like it's kind of like the scenes in the spy movies where they have to dodge those lasers to sneak into a place that are going every direction, and they're just carefully executing all these wild gymnastic moves. It's pretty sweet. Okay, Harrowing Mithridatum. I'm not going to really try to pronounce this stuff. It's about the music. So, it's a death metal album with amazing melody, some amazing drumming bits that are very unique and dizzying, some great vocals, some great, very thick sounding and complex walls of guitar. There's no show business that can be found in a lot of modern metal. But it's just guys playing their instruments and creating absolutely impenetrable and punishing sounding death metal that is both as musical as it is nasty. Okay, Dave King Trucking Company, Old TV, which you can listen to on Bandcamp. I guess when you make a thrilling and bizarre jazz album, you have to call it something, so they called it Old TV. There is so much kind of... This is an interesting one. There are structures, but there's so much free jazz allowed within those structures, and all the musicians are so good at avoiding stepping on each other's toes through all that free jazz and the very frequent outbursts. And this thing is just filled to the brim with absolutely wicked musical ideas. It's just like genius musicians expressing themselves together. I love how they move through the music. And of course, Dave King, who the band's sort of named after, sort of the leader of this band. He's one of these, like, really, like, the best, like, creative drummer guy. He's one of these type of guys. I'm a huge fan, and the world needs more of them right now. It's a jazz album with bizarre textures sometimes from strange percussion or extended playing techniques, or there's like for example, like a prepared piano on track 1. They're a group that is set out to experiment and thrill and challenge and maybe most of all to just play. Throw out the rule book.
Doodles while the beat loop, slurp noodles out of clear soup, delivery fee is oof. My guy won't lie, them shits through the roof. Aromatherapy in the stoop.
Okay, this album, it's not like I have a ton to say about it. I know it's really dense lyrically, and I'm not going to pretend like I'm all that invested, but I've definitely heard it quite a few times this year. It's a really cool rap album. Well, I haven't said the name of it yet. So it's Billy Woods and Kenny Seagal, Maps. But it's a really cool rap album with plenty of like off-kilter beats, a pretty wide selection of off-kilter beats. Amazing bars, amazing flows everywhere. Like I was saying, substance galore. It's just really kind of dense. There's some great guest features, and it's very thoughtfully assembled into a real beast and kind of heady and left field release. And it's I would say one thing that I respect about the album is it's very real. It's kind of like very left field realness. Okay, this album is called Nowhere Forever by Nowhere. Nowhere is awesome. This was interesting way of releasing it. I guess it was originally on only you could pre-order the vinyl, and the vinyl cost way more than I was willing to pay. But now it's being sold for way more than they charged. So for the folks that bought it, good for them. But then later, after the pre-order of vinyl and stuff, and people got their vinyl and were listening to it, then it went to streaming services. But I am amazed by many things about this album, starting with the smart sense of humor that informs every creative choice. It's a big element of their sound. Well-built songs with a more kind of diverse instrumental palette compared to stuff they've done in the past. It's overloaded with weird tweaks and fart jokes and epic gnarliness and, kind of ironic, and chops that, like, they're all goofy and funny and stuff, but they always feel like a statement, like art. There's no shortage of thoughtfulness that went into this heavy-handedly based piece of work, and it could have only been made by one band.
Shots, I got 500 rounds, 500 plots, I got 500 pounds. Yeah, I'm trusting none, I'm told. Honestly, I'm trusting half what I'm shown. I don't pop out, but it's each to their own. I bet she hate when I be.
Okay, this album is called Tech by Lil Tecca. I really like Lil Tecca. I always like the Lil Tecca albums. This one in particular has a really different kind of beats compared to the first stuff. And I would say that this one kind of sounds like a proper first album for him. And I would say that kind of as a big fan of his earlier projects, Lil Tecca honestly has an original and effortless method with the kind of sung raps that he does. And on this album, he continues to find new ways of doing that. This album has a huge step up in terms of album flow, and the transition between tracks. They're super cool. It's like a good DJ set. Really enjoyable album. Very excited for his future.
Prosecution on the charge. Prostitution.
Okay, Oxbow, Loves Holiday. This is, when you talk about Oxbow, here we have yet another super unique album, and it has all the stuff that Oxbow, everything that they do is very Oxbow, but every time they do an album, you're never gonna expect it. This one's kind of a lot about kind of broken but also beautiful love. There's so many metaphors. It's kind of a even happy album, and very much of that is kind of unexpected from the band, and it's unexpected and wonderful. That's what they do. They have very musically complex experimental rock instrumentals. and vocal performances that are so singular. They can just only come from this Eugene guy. And all of the players make every effort to express the music as much as they possibly can. As much depth as they can put into what they're doing in the music, that's what they will do. Oxbow has done it yet again. Okay, this one's a lot of fun. It's a very unique black metal album. Upal Kostnateni. Might as well try to say it. Very heavy-handed dose of atonal, kind of microtonal stuff. To my ear, I'm pretty sure that's right. I'm pretty sure a lot of it's kind of microtonal, kind of like Eastern sounding. Maybe even some kind of Eastern folk sounding stuff. But anyway, this sort of harmonic approach to what they're doing, it makes for some very unique dissonances and makes it for an album with a very strong character. It's a very original sound. And interestingly, it isn't very distorted. Like the sound of the guitars and stuff, it's actually relatively clean, especially for a black metal album, which adds to its uniqueness and character. But at the same time, it's totally abrasive and chaotic and swirling and overwhelming. Also, he speaks Czech throughout the album, so I don't understand what the fellow is talking about. But there's plenty of things here to listen to where I don't really need to understand. It's great. My Name Is, and then it's an album called What Is Your Name? So I love this kind of thing, the like amateurish and kind of brash sound. And also it's the sound of this album is amateurish and absolutely is brash, but also it's just absolutely kaleidoscopic. So colorful, bright. Every track is breathtaking, celebratory, but not too much celebrating because the emotive quality of these songs always hits. It's very, there's always a strong emotion being portrayed and it always hits. Also, it's just strange much of the time in ways that I find captivating. Also, I just love their combination of the Midwest emo thing with the sort of fun and electronic elements for color, as well as the fairly steady roll here of the acoustic guitar. And while much of the album fits the classic tropes of some of those styles, I also find lots of bits to be completely unexpected and brilliantly executed. And then there's parts that sound like, well, kind of like the battles, for example. I mean, just unexpected stuff. I like it.
Separation with mass killers, exploit pounding the camp, small world. I was Royal Double apostrophe / Car Shark and LeBron. What they should have aired before forever was Navy's near, my God.
So this one's really fun. It's a Celestiphone paper cut from the obit. I don't know what any of that means. So honestly, this album is fascinating. I mean, it's honestly fascinating. It's pretty left field. Write your own rules, kind of jazzy hip-hop music. It's very zany. It's full of new ideas and challenges for the listener to ponder and enjoy. It is in no sense hard for the hip-hop style. It is not hard. But what it might lack in that department definitely makes up for with left hooks of creativity and the unexpected at every turn. Without it ever sounding random or inconsequential. It always lands. And it continues to feel fresh throughout the whole runtime. Great sequencing with cool transitions. It really brings the album experience to a whole other level. And the lyrical delivery across the album is straight up funky. Non-stop character and a lot of freedom with the rhythms, which I really enjoy in hip-hop. Wanick Step Dream. First of all, what a great album cover. This is another one of those guys who's kind of like emo, and but kind of beautiful and shoegazy. And a lot of times even kind of a content and happy sound, at the same time as having all these gazy and blaringly loud guitars. It has several kind of explorative parts where it sounds a bit like, let me just start playing and see what happens. And I think those come off as fun. I also really love the quieter acoustic guitar parts. They sound so warm and wonderful. And then you have some real moments of stunning experimental stuff. One example I want to point out is the song Jovial. Holy cow, some really unique sounds going on. I don't think the vocals are anything too stand out, but they do serve their function. And at least they draw a little bit more attention to the slacker rock kind of side of the album, which maybe that's a plus, because this album is never taking itself too seriously. Well, trying to pronounce the names of the people who played on this is hard, but it is called Broken Compass. This lead guy, Isaac, has become very interesting to follow. His playing is really cool. And here he is with some guys I've never heard of, playing some very natural sounding and challenging free jazz. There is something spellbinding about observing this album of collaborative consciousness stream, and they're all kind of one stream of consciousness, and they're all these innovative musicians, and they're all trying to reach for something new together. And there are such cool uses of instruments, harshness and heaviness on this album, but also such great sensitivity, as it relates to not stepping on each other's toes when they play. And of course, there's extended techniques that are just kind of a part of their natural flowing expression as they go across these song structures, if you could even call it a structure. And I think these are some of the things that make this particular musical release feel so contemporary and fresh. It's the kind of music that takes you on the journey with it. And when it's over, you kind of can't help but laugh and think, like, how did we get here? Okay, Public Body, Big Mess. It's a zany and dancey, super fun, post-punk kind of music. Lots of synths, some great guitar parts here and there, some really good bass playing on some of these songs. Good bass playing across it, but some songs in particular is like, ooh, that's great. This album sees them being very concise. There's no filler. This album is very direct, and I like it. I think that the vocalist could probably afford to let loose once in a while. I'd love to hear it. I think he's capable of something really expressive and cool. But there we go. Okay, similar post-punk kind of scratches that post-punk itch. It's Maruja or Maruja, don't know. Knocknaria, it's an EP. But yeah, it's seriously impressive music. It's beautifully written and performed. So it could easily be stated that the music here is devastatingly beautiful. I love the rock instrumentation plus the saxophone. It has a very similar way of expressing to post-rock. Just swells and developments that steadily play out over time. But the music's not too much like post-rock because the music is always making an effort to be very direct and engaging and exciting and full of rhythm and movement. From this band, the world needs more than an EP. Would love to see some more. Okay, I'm a big Car Bomb fan. I'm so happy they did this live recording and they put it out on a CD. Without a doubt, one of my favorite bands. I consistently cannot believe that what they do is real. And it obviously must be played loud. If you know the music of Car Bomb, you just have to hear it as loud as possible. The performances of these songs are so technical and so intense, but it's never nerdy. It's just really intimidating. They make them seem so effortless, and while they play them, they even put little musical jokes here and there, and you can hear that while they play it. You can just tell that the guys in the band are having a great time while they play this stuff. And I just can't get enough of this live thing. It's great. Her Love Beheads Daisies, and it's called Carving Initials. So this album tends to go from really great and raw sounding emo to absolutely chaotic emotional breakdown. A lot of the types of riffs you hear during the chaos parts are so strange, and there are great moments of emotional swells and sparseness that provide a really kind of nice counterpoint and reprieve with the madness side of the album. And then there's even some parts that are super groovy, but not at all in a cheesy way. I love the way they do vocals, particularly in some of the softer parts of the album. I think the vocals are really hit. Some of the lyrics are very emotional. So yeah, definitely enjoy this one a lot.
Pop it up, pick it, took time, follow through with it, put the bullshit aside. Gucci, Killer B, loafers on my feet as I record this shit.
Okay, Wiki and Tony Seltzer, album 14K Figaro. It's Wiki doing his really cool, free rhythm, nerdy, flex rap, straight up realness, no matter what thing. Sometimes even really, really personal, over some really cool beats from Mr. Seltzer here. These beats are so cool, and it's so interesting to hear Wiki work over this kind of stuff, this really unique, futuristic sounding stuff. Sometimes he uses shades of hyperpop, sometimes it's just hilarious samples, just jokes. Definitely some of the most modern sounding beats that Wiki has ever done, or been on, I guess. What a collaboration this is, every song. Here's a challenging one. The Recursive Tree. The musicians are John Bloom, David Murray, Chad Taylor. John Bloom is my kind of connection point to this album. Anything I've ever seen of John Bloom is very cacophonous, and he uses the piano in a very textural way, kind of chaotic and very textural way. It's very difficult for me to understand his approach to what he does, but in the context of a jazz trio like this, it kind of helps me understand that he actually has a genius grasp of harmony and counter melody, and he knows exactly when and when not to play, and with what kind of intensity, and which I guess that's kind of he has like a certain kind of sensitivity. And I've through this trio album here, I've understood that more than I ever have about his playing. He's very unique, very singular. These other players, David Murray and Chad Taylor, bring a serious command of their instruments and inexhaustible creative spark that brings these songs to life. A life that I don't really sense when I've heard Bloom in a solo setting. It is apparently the case that all three of the musicians are doing some composing of different songs, compositions we'll call them here, though at times it can seem as though Bloom is somewhat of a leader because of his extremely distinct style. But it seems like the musicians come at this music more or less democratically, and I do think that they've recorded something special and kind of mind-opening for me personally. They didn't create this for me, but it is mind-opening for me. Okay, Jerome's Dream, The Gray in Between. This band has a very passionate vocalist who does a lot of very interesting lyrics, very cool. This time, I would say, this release, with a more honed sense of melodrama than the crazy but also awesome stuff he used to sing a long time ago, like at the turn of the century. It's kind of a reunion album. Lots of really exciting guitar playing as well as feedback. I'm a sucker for feedback. Playing with dynamics and textures in both beautiful and brutal ways. And there are grooves here that are aggressive but groovy. Like something that's this aggressive has no business being also this groovy, but it somehow works, and I really like that.
I poured a bruised blood into the sound. Stole the crown, grew out a poster child. Served a few once I stirred a stew on the stove around.
Okay, Earl Sweatshirt and Alchemist did an album. I don't really know how to say this French thing, Vordir or something, Vordir, some court term. Don't know much about that. It's slow-paced, and maybe in the canon of Earl Sweatshirt albums, it's not even really that consequential, maybe. But come on, I mean, this is an Earl and Alchemist collab. That's worth listening to. Just these two minds working together, that sells itself. The cohesion on this album of two guys working on the same project till it's done, it's a wonderful piece of work. Absolutely sick themes thematically. You could tell that they took their time trying to bring it all together and make it have all these great details and kind of a through line to the album. It's concise, very nice rap album that is very definitive of what these two artists do well. So I liked it.
You told me wrong, you told me wrong. Oh, fella, chickens that I crime alone. There's no
Okay, this is an EP, and it's the only one on the list that I didn't actually hear in 2023. I heard it late. I heard it in 2024 and realized, man, how did I miss this? All the rest of it I did actually listen to in 2023, but this one I have to include, even though I did not listen to it during 2023, but it was made during that time. Anyway, here we go. It's Fake Pollux, the Flashlight EP. It's some very unapologetic and somewhat aggressive math rock in the aggressive in the mood department. But at the same time, much of the music is understated, beautiful. There is an amazing kind of twinkly style guitar thing going on. Duo vocals that are so cool. Kind of reminds me of, there's a band called P.E.E. It's an acronym for something. It reminds me of how that band does their singing parts. Sometimes harmony, sometimes just alternate singing part, sometimes counter melodies, sometimes unison. Lyrics and delivery at times remind me of some of the best kinds of indie rock, like the sort of Block Party sort of thing, when they were at their very best. So it's math rock that's very sound focused, or very song focused. And I cannot wait to hear more from them. And I think this is their first EP. I could be wrong about that, but we need some more of their stuff. Okay. Night Verses. Every sound has a color in the Valley of Night. This sort of technical alternative metal album strikes a pretty good balance between the complicated and the melodic sticky sort of stuff, like really songy. It makes a lot of really unique and colorful sounds, and a lot of aggressive and heavy sounds. Does some of the gent thing sometimes. I would describe this album as kind of nerdy and indulgent. But a lot of that stuff is to spectacular effect much of the time. Definitely an interesting listen every time, though I can sometimes find the hyper-modern sound of it kind of cringy. But this album, I could excuse that. Also, about a month ago, the band put out part 2 to this album. And it was also a welcome addition of more varied textures and some really cool guests, including Author and Punisher, great artist, and also a song with vocals. You know, it's basically all instrumental. But, you know, they just put out part 2 to this. It's cool too.
As if the flies don't on us to live. Flesh is flesh.
Okay, last one. Sprain. The Lamb is Effigy. This album made some of my favorite noise this year. I mean, sometimes it honestly sounds like a jet taking off. This album is patient and develops sort of in the same way that slowly pulling back a rubber band, storing up a bunch of potential energy, and then it's just released. Absolutely released. The tension, release, so much of that. The lyrical content is definitely interesting. I don't always love it, but it is definitely rich with imagery and rawness. It is sometimes overly indulgent, but the vocal delivery of the stuff is pretty gnarly all over this thing, and it is about as passionate as a person can be without exploding, actually. We have some very cool distorted guitar-driven instrumentals interspersed with some more varied instrumentation like organ, like strings. And the sound is carefully crafted on the album. Even the drawn-out, slow, held-out moments are moving and swirling with a bunch of details, making the moments of reprieve during this album that can be very harsh and intense. These moments of reprieve are also definitely worth paying some attention to. The structure of the album is fairly unique in that on side A and on side B, they both end with extremely long tracks, preceded by several shorter tracks. And I would say that the shorter tracks that come before the long track really sell you. So when you get to that longer track, you're kind of ready for it. It kind of sets it up perfectly, and they give you an idea of the payoff that you're going to receive for your listening effort. Oh, they do pay off. I mean, these long tracks are like 24 minutes long. I will say listening through this entire album in one listen is actually somewhat of a chore. Not because it's boring, just because it's so much. And so when I listen to this album, I do typically listen to just one side, and then I will listen to the other side. Man, what an album. It's really terrific. Okay, that pretty much concludes the list. Subscribe. I do different kinds of videos. I do one of these kinds of videos one time a year, of course, for every year. But I also do drum covers. I talk about other musical topics. Click around on my channel, see what you find. Thanks for watching the video. See ya.